Hello there, Saber fans. Shameem here. Today we're doing a video tutorial on how to install a Nano Biscotte V4 soundboard with an RGB LED and power extender, allowing for full color mixing on the new entry-level soundboard by Plector Labs. This tutorial will be a single take, start to finish. No cuts, so y'all get to come on a magical adventure with me as we build this lightsaber together. We're going to be working on an empty SaberForge Fallen, although this general process can be used and adapted for pretty much any basic lightsaber hilt. A disclaimer that I do not claim that this is the only way or the best way to install a Nano Biscotte or soundboards in general. I do not make any claims that this is the best way to solder or the best practices. These are merely my own processes that I've developed over the last few years. This is simply how I'm comfortable doing it. And so I hope that some of the things in this video will be useful to you. So let's start from the left to the right. Or maybe the right to the left. I'm not sure how this video is going to flip when we upload it. But we've got solder. I've got very, very thin solder, which is quite useful in these fine electronic builds. We've got a Tri-Cree RGB LED. This particular model is an NEC Cree board from Nigon Electronic Creations. What I like about the NEC Cree RGB LEDs is that there are far fewer points that you need to solder. The common positives have all already been linked, so there's a single common positive pad instead of 3 positive pads that you would have to link on a normal RGB LED. And then the red LED already comes with a black resistor built onto the PCB star. So there's only 4 connections here instead of 8 that you would need to do with the 6 points on the star and then the 2 points for the resistor. So that saves time, so I like that. You've got your tri-lens, you've got adhesive thermal tape. This will go underneath the star onto the copper heatsink. This is your LED holder. You've got your aluminum cap, and then the copper heatsink itself, which screws into the aluminum cap. Continuing on, you've got a 12mm AV switch. This is non-illuminated. I personally dislike illuminated switches, so I will not be covering that on here, but there are instructions in the Nano Biscotte manual if you're interested in doing accent LEDs, such as an illuminated AV switch. This is a 12mm offset recharge port, similar to the style that SaberForge uses. This is your power extender 2.0 module from Custom Saber Shop. This allows for full color mixing on the Nano Biscotte soundboard. And we'll get into the use of the power extender a little bit later on once we get to that point in the tutorial. You've got your SD card. I've preloaded and configured this with 3 different sound fonts and 3 different colors, just so that when we load it up, you'll be able to see the full color mixing in action. I have here a 28mm bass speaker from KR Sabers. If you go onto his website, saberarmory.com, this one is listed as very loud, and it is indeed very loud. So it's my favorite speaker that I've currently had experience with, so I'll be using that in this build. This is a 1.10 size chassis, 3D printed by Jordan's Custom Saber Services, Saber Customization. Jordan Mole, go look him up. Y'all know him. Y'all love him. So that's one of his 3D printed chassis. You've got an 18650 lithium-ion battery, 3.7 volts. It's 3,400 milliamp hours. And I think that's all we've really got here. And a soldering iron. That'll be useful. Yeah, so I like to start at the LED and work my way down. So I'm going to move the hilt to one side, and we can get started with, first things first, the LED. So I open up the heatsink, put some your thermal tape onto the copper heatsink, making sure to line up the holes. You've got your 6 holes along the edges lined up with the little notches that are cut into the thermal paper. And you can use your nail to peel this protective layer off of the thermal tape, revealing the sticky gray side. I'll throw those away. You can then line up the star, which also has these 6 little holes. Line those up and kind of position it in the center of the hole, then press down, making sure not to press on the actual LED diodes themselves. You've got 4 solder pads, one behind each of the 3 LED stars, and then one right there. That's the common positive. What I like to do before I get started is I like to tin the pads here on the LED star, just to make it easier to solder wires onto them. That's the red. That's the green. And they are labeled with G negative, B negative, R negative, and then positive. So you can tell what they are all for, which is great. Okay. 4 pads have been tinned with solder. Now let's get some wire. Let's measure out how much wire we'll need. I like to assume that the LED comes a little bit out so that I can access it if I need to, and then the wiring goes a little bit out so that the soundboard can be accessed. So that's how I measure how much wire I need. And I always like to trim a little bit extra so that, if necessary, I like to cut the wire a little long so that I can trim it later if necessary. It's easier than accidentally cutting it like way too short or just too short, and then you have to either rewire it or wire on an extended wire piece. Let's see. Red is always positive for me. Orange is going to be the red negative. Then let's do blue for the blue negative. Make sure they're about the same length. Oh, and that's the end of my blue. So I'm all out of blue. Oh well. We'll throw that away. Then green for the green negative. There will be singing, there will be humming, there will be moments of silence. There will be general shenanigans. I will try to make this entertaining as well as informative. Just in case we need it, I'm going to go ahead and open up this new roll of blue wire as well while we're here. Yeah, buddy, fresh blue wire. Okay. If you watched my Prism install tutorial, you know that we came up with a little saying where we, in terms of preparing the wiring, you grip it with your pliers, you strip it with the wire cutters, and then you dip it into some flux. This flux is very old, but it still does the job. So what you've done is stripped a little bit of the plastic or the rubber, the plastic, whatever the outer coating is made of. You've stripped a little bit of that off, revealing the core of the wire, and then you've dipped that into some flux. And the flux will help when we apply solder to it to really make the solder stick very well onto the exposed part of the wire. So grip it, strip it, and dip it. We'll do that for all 4. I like to grip it with pliers because I've noticed that if I try to grip it with my fingers, sometimes the oil on my fingers makes it difficult to get a really good grip, and so then when I pull, sometimes the wire goes flying out of my hands. And if the wire is attached to a soundboard or a battery or something else, you don't want it flying out of your hands. So that's why I like to grip it with the pliers. I'm going to take the solder, I'm going to take my soldering iron, and then just do a little bloop like that. And we've gotten the solder. You see now it's very shiny. That's the solder on the tip of the green wire. We're going to do that to the other 3 wires now as well. And then I wipe off any excess flux that there is. The flux sort of starts to melt and runs a little bit, so I wipe that off. And bloop. There we go. Okay. Lightsaber can go out of the way for now. Let's start with blue. Alright, this guy right here is blue negative. I'm going to line this up with the soldering pad. Get some fresh solder onto the tip. General rule of thumb when stripping wiring, you don't want to strip too much wire. My general rule of thumb is to strip about the same length as the pad that you're going to solder onto. So this pad on the LED star is a couple millimeters long, so that's about how long I've stripped the exposed wire. So there you go. That's not going anywhere. Let's go orange next. Orange is red negative. That one's this guy here. Now you're good. Let's go to green negative. Bloop. And finally, the common positive. That's you right there. There you go. So you've got all 4 of your wires soldered up. Now you're going to take the end of the wire and push it through the hole, the corresponding hole next to whichever pad you've soldered it onto, and then pull it down like that so it goes through the hole. You're going to do that for the other 3 wires now. Yoink. Yoink. Throughout this whole process, be careful not to touch the LEDs themselves. You can, you know, if you press too hard, you may damage them. Also, any of the oil that's on your fingers, it may obstruct and otherwise fog up the LEDs. So it's just a general rule of thumb: don't touch them. So now you get your lens. You'll notice on the red star there are 3 holes you can see right there, and right there, in between the LED stars. So you've got 3 legs on your lens. You're going to put the legs into those little holes. There you go. Clicks into place, like so. And then take your aluminum cap, slide it over, get the threads lined up, and start spinning. All right. And I go in with a flathead screwdriver onto the slot on the back, tighten it, make sure it's nice and tight. And there you go. Your LED module is all set and ready to go. I like to twist the wires just a little bit to make it easier to push them all down through the length of the hilt. So we'll just give those a little twist, and then we'll go down to the end of it and give those a little twist as well. Just to sort of help keep them bunched together. Whee. All right, we'll put that LED aside for now. Moving on down, I like to do the switch on top and then the recharge port on the bottom. Both of them come with a little nut that unscrews. So we'll take the nut off, and then let's move that aside for now. There are 2 legs on the back of the switch. The switches for our purposes do not have polarity, and so it does not matter. There is no positive or negative on the switches. There's just switch leg 1 and switch leg 2. I personally like to use yellow for my primary switch. Switch starts about there and goes out to about there. Again, these are general approximations. I will trim them up once we get to the end and we're ready to wire up the soundboard. Grip it, strip it, dip it, say it with me. Alrighty, let's get the solder ready to go. There we go. That's tip number 1 tinned, and tip number 2 tinned. Now you've got, oopsies. Earlier, I don't remember if I specified what I was doing, but I tinned the 2 legs coming off of the switch with solder. So now there is solder on the wire, there's solder on the leg of the switch, and then you use the soldering iron to melt the, oops, I pulled that apart a little too fast, to melt the 2 of them together. Okay. Nice. That's not going anywhere. Add a bit more. Helping hands or alligator clamps may be useful to you if this is your first time doing it, or you like things to be super steady and super still. You can clamp the switch or the wires in place so that they're just standing there like touching, and then you can go in with your solder and bloop them. That's fine. Bloop, yes, that's a very, very technical term. Heat shrink, man's best friend in the world of wiring sabers. You want to cut enough so that it covers the length of the solder joint and then some. That's my general rule of thumb. So you see there's your solder joint, and then the heat shrink will slide over. Oops, it's a little tight. There we go. And the heat shrink will slide over the entire exposed solder joint. The point of heat shrink is to isolate the solder, the electrical solder joint from any outside external forces, and then it's also to reinforce it. It's called heat shrink because it shrinks when you apply heat to it. So just gently run your soldering iron, or if you have a heat gun, put it on low setting and run it across the heat shrink a bit. It'll get kind of a glossy color, and then in a few seconds it will not dry, I guess, but it will solidify into something much more durable. So we'll twist the end of the yellow wires, get that ready to go. I think I'm going to go ahead and put that into the hilt now. Alright. Switch wire goes into the top hole. Pull it out from the bottom. That's in there very well. Now we're going to put the nut over the wire, over both wires, and then that'll drop down into the hilt. This next part will be difficult for you to see, but I'm going to try and explain what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to go in with a long screwdriver in through this. You can sort of see what's going to happen. I'm going to try and get the nut up onto the switch, and then tighten those once the threads have gone in. So there we go. Woo, got it on my first try. That never happens. This fallen hilt is a single piece design, meaning it doesn't unthread anywhere in the middle. A lot of hilts from different companies will unthread some point in the middle-ish area, and that makes it much easier to just use your fingers to put the nut onto the screw. There we go. We've gotten it all the way down. As far as it will go, just a few more turns. Okay. Yep, almost there. A few more turns, and now we just make it very tight. There we go. Alright. That switch isn't going anywhere. Very good. Let's move that aside, and we'll do a similar thing now with the recharge port. Recharge port has three legs. One of them, on this particular one of them is very big, and the other two are a little bit smaller. The very big one is, let's put that one on top. The very big one there is your positive for the LED, for the soundboard, for the battery. That's your common positive. And then the other two going clockwise is battery negative and then board negative, the soundboard negative. We're going to take off the nut, get our wires ready. Let's measure out how long we need to go. So I'm going to have one red for the battery, and then another red for the board. These two red wires will respectively go to the red battery, the positive on the battery, and then the positive on the board. Before I strip those, let's get the other two. Where's my black? Black is always negative. And in this case, I'm going to do a negative battery for black. Let's measure the length of the red and trim that. And then I like to use gray for the negative soundboard. The only real color conventions that you really have to hold to are red is positive, black is negative. Do not ever switch those two If you want to use black or red for other things that don't have polarity, that's fine. But don't ever use red for a negative connection and black for a positive connection. That's just wrong. If anyone opens up your saber afterwards, that will be very, very confusing to them. So do yourself and anyone who may look at your saber in the future a favor and sort of find your own color convention and stick to it. Red is positive, black is negative. So for the reds, these are going to the same leg on the recharge port. So I've stripped a little bit longer portion of them. I'm going to twist these two exposed wires together. There we go. So you've twisted them into one combined positive. Now we're going to dip that into the, oh, that was a lot of flux. You don't need all that much flux. I'm going to dip that into the flux, get the solder ready. There you go. And then that's very long, so we'll trim that. Okay. There is a manual on, in the manual there's a diagram on, you know, which leg is which. There's also a different kind of, oops, I didn't even tin these two, or these three, that's my bad. Let's tin these three first. 1, 2, and 3, there we go. Now it should be easier to make a connection. I've done so many of these now that I've just memorized which leg is which. You may wish to refer to the manual in the Nano Biscotte soundboard manual. There's a diagram to show which leg is which, if you don't know which one is which. There we go. Those aren't going anywhere. You've got all three of your connections soldered. Now we're going to get some heat shrink. We've got 2 of the smallest heat shrink, and then we're going to go one size up for the red because there's 2 wires on that instead of just the 1. So you want to make sure that both of your wires can fit through the heat shrink clearly. There you go. There's your red onto the leg on the recharge port. Now we're doing the black. All right, and finally the gray. Okay, so those are all covering up the solder points. Now we're going to put the heat and the shrink into heat shrink. Any of you ever play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time? I think that was the name of it for Super Nintendo. The Shredder, whenever he comes up on his face appears on the TV screen, and he does this little So that's what I think of myself every time I do a little laugh. I think of Shredder from the 4th Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle video game. Obscure references! Alright, let's get ready to put the recharge port into the hilt. So we're going to thread all 4 of those wires into the bottom hole on the hilt, and out they come the other side. And that goes on there. Now the nut goes over all 4 of your recharge port wires, and down it goes, and now we got to get the yellow wire out of the way and get the nut onto the recharge port. So again, I apologize, this may be a little boring section for you since you can't really see what's going on, but you will survive, you will survive. I don't actually know the lyrics to that song, so forgive me. There we go, almost on. Yes, we are on, the threads are locked. Okay, now they're gonna tighten those. The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said. The chances, the changes are all yours to make. The mold of your life is in your hands to break. Okay, great. Now I'm going to throw a kill key into the hilt, into the recharge port, because it is time to start wiring these guys up to the soundboard. We're going to move that aside for now. Let's get the chassis ready to go. First things first, I'm going to put the speaker into the bottom of the chassis and then work my way that way. Who undoes the ziplock on these little baggies? I like to just rip them open because I'm a man! Urgh. Green I like to use for speaker. It's about yay long. Okie dokie. Some of you may be like, but Shameem, didn't you already use green for one of the LED negatives? How can you use the same color wire for two completely different parts of the lightsaber? Well, random internet user, that is a very good question and good observation on your part. But these two wires will be going in completely opposite directions. You know, the LED wire will be coming in from this direction, wrapped up with all the other LED wires, and then your two speaker wires are coming from this direction. So it's very easy to tell this is the LED green wire and these two are the green speaker wires. Now, if I have three, you know, if I had, for whatever reason, you know, the wires coming from the same direction, then clearly you would not want to use the same color because it's very easy to get mixed up if you don't label them some other way. But with all the different colors in the rainbow, why would you label your wires like that? Unless you're going to be like one of those super cool people who's like, I'm just going to wire the entire saber using black wire. And it's like, that's so dope! So, yeah. On your speaker, speakers generally do have polarity when used in other applications, but for the sake, for the purposes of our lightsabers and our soundboards, the speakers do not have polarity. So there's one speaker pad there and one speaker pad on the other side. It does not matter which is which. That's why I don't have a red and a black wire. I just have two green wires, because polarity does not matter on speakers when we're talking about lightsaber soundboards. In other applications, polarity may matter, so mileage may vary. All right. Now, the pads here on the speaker already came pre-tinned, so I didn't have to put any solder onto them before I soldered on the wires, in case you were wondering. All right. I'm going to throw a little heat shrink onto the ends of the speaker, onto these pads here, just to cover up these solder joints a bit. You want to cover that up a bit. And then apply that young heat shrink. Apply that young heat. Make that young heat shrink. Cool. One down, one to go. We are about halfway done, a little over halfway done. We've got pretty much everything wired up except for the battery and the soundboard. And this will be probably the most, not difficult part, but the most intricate and complicated part. So far, you can maybe agree that it hasn't been all too complicated. And if you take your time and you know what you're doing, you too can be a sabersmith! Ha ha ha! Alright, I want to figure out which side I want the soundboard to, the wires to go. Ooh, this is cool. This is the new version of the V4, and all the solder pads are brass. Or I don't know if they're brass, but they're gold colored. They all used to be silver before. That's really cool. It's like a special edition Nano Biscotte, where it's gold and green, like the Green Power Ranger. Yep, buddy. Yep, buddy, Green Power Ranger. Alright, so if I have it like this, speaker pads are on this far side, so I want the speaker wires to go through that section, not the other side. There's little holes on this side so that the wires can pass through. And then you see the speaker sits like that. You've got your two solder pads are covered by the heat shrink, so those are not exposed. Your wire can run down this channel up into this little hole up here. Pull those, tighten those. You see the speaker wires are running up that channel, up through that hole, and then they can get soldered onto the soundboard, which is delightful. But before I do that, I'm going to apply a little bit of super glue over here so that the speaker stays in place. Just a little bit along the edge, the top of this edge here on the top and the bottom, and then shove that guy back in. And we'll just press that down for a few seconds, let the super glue hold. This super glue dries in about 10 seconds, so it's pretty awesome. I got it from my local, not comic store, but hobby store. Life-giving waters indeed. Great. Now what I'm going to do, the speaker is ready to go. In case, you may notice that there's a hole here. Your battery would go underneath here, and then this hole is for a Switchcraft recharge port, which you've got here. This is different from the SaberForge style recharge port. The functionality is the same, just the size is different. And on certain hilts where you only have a single hole, or you don't want to have an external recharge port, you want to hide your recharge port inside your lightsaber, inside the chassis, that's what this hole is for. It's threaded. You can put your recharge port in there and then tighten it up with a nut, hold the recharge port in place here. We're not doing that in this particular build because there are two holes for switch and recharge port in the hilt itself, but just so you know that that is an option, that's what it's there for. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tin all the pads across the this side of the soundboard, all of these, and then I'm also going to tin this little pad here in the middle called L3. That's your third LED pad. There's L1 and L2 here on the main part of the board. And then L3 is kind of way back there, and that's what you need the power extender for. So as soon as I do this and we get to the power extender part, then we can talk a bit more about its purpose. I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket. I am looking for come up, this is gang awesome. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and trim the, you can see along the top there and along some of the sides, there's still a little bit of residue from where this Nano Biscotte was broken out of, the big plate full of, I don't know, hundreds of Nano Biscottis. So just going to trim that little bit off all the sides and make it clean. There's no functional purpose for this, it's just aesthetically I like it to be clean. I'm going to put the Nano Biscotte right around there on the chassis so that there's enough room back here for your SD card to pop in and out, and then we will lay the power extender along this portion here. So that's what we'll do. If you opt for putting a recharge port back here, you can trim this this rounded arch off and then put the power extender underneath there. Or if you really want to get tight, you can put the power extender either in front of there or even on top of the Nano Biscotte soundboard if you really want to get tight. So you can do that. Here is your power extender. Basically, there are two built-in power extenders, for purposes of this discussion, there are two built-in power extenders on the Nano Biscotte itself. One of them controls L1, the primary LED pad. The other one controls L2, the secondary LED pad. And then there wasn't enough room to put a third power extender on here to control L3. You may remember on the Nano Biscotte V3, the previous version, there was only two pads. There was L1 and L2, or actually it was just called LED negative and then flash on clash negative. L negative and F negative. So those are now replaced with L1 and L2 respectively. And because Reflector didn't want the footprint, the size of this soundboard to change, he opted not to add a third power extender on for L3, and instead you have your external power extender, so that the Nano Biscotte V4 is the same size as the V3, but now with and just a small additional add-on part, you can have full RGB color mixing, a different color main blade and flash on clash color for each of the 3 sound fonts on the Nano Biscotte soundboard, which is an awesome feature. It's really, really cool. I'm going to flip this guy over. I'm going to get some very, very heavy duty double-sided adhesive foam. This is what I like to use to attach the Nano Biscotte onto the chassis. Some of the chassis, depending on where you buy your chassis from or what chassis you buy, it may have a built-in slot for your soundboard to go onto. But I'm using this this Jordan Mole chassis that he has is sort of an all-in-one, so you have to use some kind of adhesive foam or tape or something to hold your soundboard in place. So now the tape lines up level with the this little SD card slot here. So we're gonna take off the red tape. Let's see if I can do this with my fingernails. Yes, I can. Woo! All right, black tape, part 1 revealed. Let's see, black tape, part 2. Also revealed. Alright, just so you see what I have here, the bottom portion of the Nano Biscotte, except for the SD card slot, is covered with very sticky tape, and I'm gonna stick that on right about there. Boom. Press that on, and that sucker's not going anywhere till kingdom come. Alright, now I'm just gonna go ahead and get these 2 speaker wires lined up and ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and solder those. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add one more layer just because I can. We're going to do that across the whole thing. Peel off the red tape. Begone bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. Wow, I can speak. Bureaucracy. Nobody likes red tape. Alright. Now that's not going anywhere. Let's trim about that much off. And about that, whoops, that's not even close to enough trimmed off. Actually, that's fine. What we'll do is we'll twist these wires a bit. There we go. Twist the speaker wires. Okay, now we will grip it, strip it, and dip it, and get these ready to solder onto the soundboard. Aha, look at me dual wielding. Dipping both of them at the same time. Like a boss. Cool. Alright. Now you guys go back up into the hole. Maybe we go one at a time. Okay. Line you up with the speaker pad. This may be a part where you want to use helping hands, but screw that. I hate helping hands, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use my my own hands. These hands don't need no help. It's mainly, though, because I'm lazy and I don't want to I do so many Saber installs, I don't take the time to set up the helping hands for every single soldering connection. If I only did one of these a month, then maybe. But ain't nobody got time for that. Okay. So you see one of them has been soldered on, and then this guy is about to be soldered on. So we've lined it up. I'm going to hold that in place with my nail. And bloop. There you go. Your 2 speaker wires on this side have been soldered on. Now let's we're gonna get ready to do everything else. Let's get the power extender set up back here and ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and trim the little excess PCB off the edges of this as well, just to make it look prettier. All right, there are 5 pads on your power extender. It's only these, the middle one and then those left 2 that you have to worry about. These 2 right ones, the positive and the positive ones that are here, you do not have to solder those or worry about those. For this particular use of the power extender. The power extender has other uses for other soundboards and whatnot, which may make use of those extra 2 positive pads. But for a Nano Biscotte V4, for our purposes, those 2 positive pads are not required. Okie dokie. We've tinned those 3. I'm going to cut a little bit of this red tape here. Too much sticky, go away. Okay, now we'll peel off the red tape. Be gone, bureaucracy. All right. Bloop. Press that on. That's ready to go. All right, I think we're done with the adhesive. We can move that out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and get the power extender wired up for the few things that we need right now. We will need a, let's do brown. We will need to connect one of these pads to the negative pad here on the soundboard. Let's go that way, so about that much length. So let's see, what are the labels on here? There's negative, so there's R and there's negative on this side, and then there's a single negative on this side. The single negative on this side is where the blue wire from your RGB LED is going to go. That's where that's going to go. And then the negative wire is going to go onto the L3 pad here on the soundboard, and then the negative pad is going to go to the negative pad. So that's what I'm going to do right now. It's the negative to the negative that I'm doing with this brown wire. Yep, okay, so let's do negative, boom. That's good and soldered. And we're gonna run you through here. And then we're gonna go down through this hole, along the channel, and then up through this hole, right next to where the negative soundboard pad is. Perfect. And that will go right there. Actually, I'm going to leave this here for now because we have some wiring from here that also needs to go to the negative pad. So I'm going to join all those wires together and then have them all go to the same pad together. So I'm just going to leave this brown wire here for now. Now we're going to take the R pad and go to L3. Let's use purple for that. Oh, is this purple? No, that's black. I'm colorblind. There's purple. So that one can go right around there. You don't have to go through any back channels. You can actually, yeah, it should, because that will go over the SD card. So let's go ahead and run it through a back channel. I sound like setting up secret talks with China through the back channel. Yeah, this purple wire's got to go through the back channel. Rip it, strip it, dip it. That's what makes the world go round. Okie dokie. Bloop. Alright, we got that. I'm going to have you go through the same back channel as the brown wire. Down you go. And up you go. Now the purple, I don't have to connect it to anything else, so I can just connect that directly to the L3 pad. But maybe I will wait on that because it's going to have to go over these solder points. So I want to get all these solder points finished, and then the purple can go over those. So let's go ahead and get this all ready to go. Let's get your LED down through the rest of the hilt. All right. So we're going to shove the wires down through this hilt. I'm running it along the side of the hilt so that it doesn't hit the switch or the recharge port. You've got two retention screws here. One of them is there. That's your LED retention screw, and then this one is for your blade. So we're going to shove that all the way down to right about where the LED retention screw is. And then tighten that guy. Boom. There's your LED ready to go. And now you got a crap ton of wires coming out of this side. And we're going to get ready to wire all that up. Okay. At first, let's put the battery in last. Alright, where do we like to switch? Let's start with the switch. So let's see, how far out do I want to be able to pull my chassis? If I pull it out about that far, that's sufficient. So I can trim my wires about there-ish. But I need to be careful. This blue wire has to go all the way back here to the power extender. So I'm going to take the blue wire out of all that. Make sure that it has plenty of space to go all the way down there. And then the rest of these I'm going to cut around there. Boom. Yellow is for the switch. Let's start there. We're going to grip it, strip it, and dip it. Didn't quite make it in. Alright, solder. That's a little too globular. Let's clean that off. Get some new solder. There we go. Okay. Before I start all this, I'm going to get a larger piece of heat shrink. Let's cut it to about that much. And I'm going to put all of these wires through it. Zootalo, I have missed one. Alright, so now that big heat shrink covers all the wires that we have coming out of the hilt. We'll see the reason for that in a little bit. Okay, switch wire. So all the wires are going to go through this, this arch here onto the soundboard. So we're going to go under the arch, and then I'm going to grab it, bend it into position, and align it with the activation switch pad here on the soundboard. Boom. You've got one wire down. That's the switch wire. Next along the line is L2. So if you go RGB, R is L1, G is L2, and then B is L3. RG, so G is green. Green is going to go on to L2, so that's what we're going to do next. We'll grip it. We'll strip it. I just realized I made a wee bit of a mistake. Not a terrible mistake, but I don't know which of the red wires now... Oh, actually, no, never mind. All the red wires go to the same place. My bad. I was thinking of, I don't know which one of the red wires is for the red negative, but then I remembered orange is our red negative. It's not a red wire after all. So, RGB, red, the red negative goes onto L1. So orange is our next guy. Boom. Go underneath the arch. Line it up with the pad. Bloop. Hold it there for a second for the solder to solidify. And there you go. You've got a few more, it looks like Aquaman colors, the orange, the green, and the yellow. Alright. Now let's see what we need to do. all these 3 red wires, not all 3 of them. Let's see, which one's this longer one? I need to figure out which one is for the LED. Let's see which wire if I pull. That's not it. That's not it. So by process of elimination, there it is. Alright, so this is the positive LED. This is one of the other positives from your recharge port. These two go together onto the positive of the pad, the positive of the soundboard, and then this second red that came from the recharge port, this goes to the battery. So that was, I didn't want to mess that up, so that's why I needed to remember which one is for the LED. I'm going to put that underneath the flex pad for now. So these 2 positives are going to go together, so I'm going to cut a little bit extra off so that I can twist the 2 of them together, and then those 2 will go onto the positive soundboard. Okie dokie. Dip both of those in. Get some solder going. Nice. Okay, LED, you can go back down a little bit. Thank you for your service. And then let's line you up. Tighten. All right, we're ready to go again. So, okay, we need to trim that a little bit more. There we go. These 2 reds go to the furthermost pad. That's your common positive on the soundboard. That's a lot of solder built up on there. Let's clean that up. Alright, and I want the brown and purple ones to stay out of my way, so I'm going to use the helping hand of my plier just to get it out of the way. Boom. Okay. That's good to go. Now, what else do we need to do? This blue goes all the way to the power extender, so let's do that. Let's go through the arch, but then we'll go back down into the back channel, the same back channel that the purple and the brown ones went into, but we're going to go the opposite direction now, so shove the blue guy up out. So you see now in this back channel we've got purple, we've got brown, and we've got blue. Purple and brown are going one way, blue is going the other. And we'll send you under the this back arch here. Come on, blue wire. Alright, under the back arch and onto this negative pad here. That's about how much length we need. Okay, I need to grip you and strip you, and I need to dip you. There we go. Come to me, solder. I am your master. It's late. I'm tired. Sorry for being a weirdo. I'm going to use the pliers to help me get a better grip on it. Done. Alright, you see there, you've got your blue on the top part here, brown and purple on the bottom. Now, what wires do we have left out here? Gray goes to negative on the soundboard, so does yellow. That's your second switch. Both of those go to the negative. Your brown also goes to the negative. So I'm gonna take care of all 3 of those right now. The gray goes to negative, that's from the recharge port. The yellow goes to the negative on the soundboard, that's from the speaker. let's twist these two together first, then we'll add the brown, which is from the power extender. Now the diagram in the Nano Biscotte V4 soundboard for the power extender can be a little confusing, because it has some of the wires, you know, joining here, 2 of them, and then them going and joining another 2 here, and then going to the soundboard or whatever. Basically, anytime you see 2 wires converging and then going somewhere, it doesn't matter if they converge before the soundboard and then go, or if all 3 of them go, and if all 3 of them converge at the soundboard itself, or if 2 of them converge here and then another one goes to the soundboard and then those 2 go to the... So as long as they all end up connected and the path is... you know, from one point to another, you are able to trace a path from one point to the other, then it doesn't matter how many wires or how many points there are in between there. So that's just something to consider. All right, let's get your gray and yellow. We'll put that underneath the arch. And then right around, let's say there-ish, let's trim that much off. And we'll strip a lot of it off. And I'm going to pull the yellow and gray out a bit. Go in from this side. That might make it a bit easier. There we go. Okay. Now we have to combine, I don't know if you can see it. There's your brown wire. There's the yellow and the gray. So I'm gonna try and combine those 3 wires all together now. This will be a bit difficult because my hands all sweaty. There we go. I think I got it. Purple wire keeps getting in my bloody way. Cool! Yes, we got all 3 of them. We'll dip that into some flux. Move the purple wire out of the way. Get that solder action going. Trim the excess off, and then put you onto the soundboard. The negative soundboard. Almost done, just a couple more connections to go. You're nearing the home stretch, guys. There we go. You got the brown, the gray, and the yellow all next to the joint red. Those are now onto the common negative. The only thing you have left are your positive and negative for the battery coming from the hilt, and then the purple guy, which connects to L3. So let's go ahead, now that all of these pads along the soundboard are done, I can measure out your L3. That goes to about there, and I don't have to worry about getting in the way of any more solder joints because everything else on the board has been soldered. Grip it, dip it, strip it. I messed that up, but that's okay. Alright, line up the purple with L3. L3 has been soldered right across the top of the board there. You're good to go. Last thing to solder is the battery. The battery comes with a JST connector. I like to get the pre-wired pack because I'm lazy and I don't like wiring my own batteries. It's just my own peace of mind knowing that you know, it has come pre-wired. It's encased in this black vinyl material, and it's all good and ready to go. So I like to pay an extra $1 or $2 for the pre-wired soundboard, or the pre-wired battery. That will slide underneath here. And it can go in as far as, or as not as far as you want it to go. There you go. All right. Now we're going to cut 1 wire at a time. Black, then red. It doesn't matter which way. Let's start with black. So expose a little bit of the black Do not expose both the red and the black at the same time, in case, you know, the wires bend out of the way and the exposed wires touch each other. Then you're in a whole world of trouble. You ruin your battery, you may spark an explosion, you know, nuclear holocaust, all that jazz. So you just don't do it. Just don't do it. Be safe, be smart. Keep one of them uncut. Got a little heat shrink ready to go. We'll put that onto this side of the black wire that's coming out of the hilt. And then we'll also grip, strip, and dip the black wire that's coming out of the hilt in preparation to join it with the bit that's coming out of the battery. Okay, now you've got two exposed black sections. This, again, is probably where helping hands could prove useful, but I like to just bend the wires and get them in position, and then a little bloop. That's not going anywhere. There you go. There's the exposed solder joint. I'm going to run the heat shrink up over the exposed solder joint, and then apply some heat to shrink it down. There we go. All right, one final connection, boys and girls. Positive battery. Expose that red wire from the battery. That's a lot of solder on my iron. There we go. All right, the battery's exposed. Now we're going to expose the bit from the recharge port. Grip it, strip it, and finally dip it. And then tin it. Let's get our last piece of heat shrink cut. Slide it up over one side of the red. Line up these two wires and get ready to rumble. Boom. Slide your heat shrink over both sides. Make sure to cover up the exposed solder joint connection. Apply heat and shrink. Okay. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is, we've got a little bit of extra battery wire here. I'm going to shove that in to the hilt. Pull out the larger piece of heat shrink that we had put on before we started soldering anything onto the board. Shove the battery wires through the big heat shrink, and then pull the big heat shrink like so that it keeps everything nice and neat on this side of the chassis. And then we're going to apply some heat to the big heat shrink. And naturally, since it's a bigger piece of heat shrink, it will take more heat to make sure you get every inch of it. You got to apply it across the whole surface area. So this may take a second. Just run your soldering iron back and forth. You want to be careful not to touch the solder onto the heat shrink, because then the solder will sort of glob off and become sticky all over the heat shrink, and that's just messy and icky. You don't want to do that. All right, there you go. Now, just push that wire back in, give it a few twists, and you can slide it into your hilt. But before we do that, we want to put the SD card in. Make sure that your kill key is still installed. Put that away. And let's see. SD card goes in there. Pliers or tweezers may be required. Did I get it in all the way? There we go. Let's give it a test. This is the Coder sound font. We've set it up for a sort of orange color with a white flash on flash. Let's go ahead and put this all the way in and get the pommel back on. Screw the pommel all the way on. Nothing is rattling. You're all good and set to go. Much better resonance now that the pommel is on. Let's just, do I have a little blade here? do. Let's throw a little blade in there quick and just demonstrate this. Tighten your blade retention screw. Alright, that's one font. Press and hold, you'll hear a beep. That'll activate mute mode once you let go. So now it's muted. Same flash on clash blade colors. Press and hold, turns off. Press and hold, wait for 2 beeps, then let go. That'll advance to the next font.
Cyber Assassin.
We've got an Arctic Blue with a more intense blade flicker. Orange flash on clash. Press and hold. Dark meat. You've got hot pink with a light blue flash on clash. I'm trying to do this. My desk is kind of cramped, so I can't swing the blade around a lot. There we go, a bit higher. But then you don't see the pretty blade. Anywho, so there you go, guys. Thank you for joining me on this start-to-finish ride of installing a Nano Biscotte V4 soundboard. When you're done with your saber, you can put your kill key in. A Nano Biscotte does have a deep sleep mode. The default is after about 5 minutes of inactivity for it to go into deep sleep mode. Then you'll have to press the AV switch to boot it up, and then press it again to activate. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just wanted to show off the tutorial I had done previously, a Nano Biscotte V3 tutorial. That was, I don't know, a year or 2 ago. I didn't really have a proper chassis installed for that one. So I wanted to do a new one to show off the chassis, but then also to show off the RGB color mixing with the power extender and how you wire that, and then also just to have one with the current version of the Nano Biscotte so that all of you guys can use that for your builds. So yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or post below in YouTube. I don't really respond to YouTube messages, but I will respond to YouTube comments. The link for my Facebook customs page, my business page, is below as well. You're more than welcome to reach out to me with any other questions or commission requests through there, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. And then also in the description below is a complete parts list, everything that you saw that was used in this video. There will be a link provided to that part, or if that part is no longer available, an updated version is available, the updated version link will be provided below. So I hope that you will find all that useful. I hope you found it entertaining and enjoyable, and also informative. Thank you all so very much for watching. I really enjoy doing tutorial videos, and I look forward to doing some more videos for you guys in the future. Thank you again for watching, and may the Force be with you.